Welcome to Unlimited Horror Stories. Today, we bring you a spine-chilling tale of government corruption and genetic experimentation in deep space. In Genetic Horrors, a deep space conspiracy, a team of genetically modified humans on a retrieval mission uncovers a dark secret about the previous crew of a derelict ship. As they delve deeper into the mystery, they find themselves at odds with the very government that created them. If you enjoy tales of horror, suspense, and intrigue, then this story is for you. And if you want to support our channel and help us bring you more thrilling stories like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video from Unlimited Horror Stories. Captain Alexei Volkov stood on the bridge of the retrieval ship, looking out at the endless expanse of space beyond the viewport. He had been in space for most of his adult life, but it never ceased to amaze him how vast and empty it could be. He turned to his crew, a group of genetically modified humans specially designed for deep space missions like this one. "All right, team, we're approaching the derelict vessel," he said, his deep voice carrying across the bridge. "We don't know what we're going to find, so be prepared for anything. Keep your wits about you and stay alert." The crew nodded, their faces set in grim determination. They had been trained for this, but they knew that the unknown was always the most dangerous. As they approached the ship, Alexei couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The vessel was drifting in space, its hull pitted and scarred by debris. He couldn't see any signs of life aboard, but that didn't mean anything. They had encountered enough strange situations in space to know that anything was possible. As they docked with the ship, the crew prepared to board. They donned their protective gear and weapons, ready for whatever lay ahead. Alexei led the way, his hand on his sidearm, as he cautiously made his way through the airlock and into the ship's interior. The air was stale and musty, the lighting flickering intermittently. Alexei could feel the tension mounting in his team as they slowly made their way through the ship, searching for any signs of life or clues as to what had happened. It was as they rounded a corner that they saw it, the first body. It was slumped against the wall, its eyes staring blankly ahead. Alexei's stomach lurched as he recognized the signs of asphyxiation. He motioned for his team to spread out and search the rest of the ship. As they moved through the ship, they found more bodies. Each one was in the same state, the cause of death unmistakable. Alexei felt a growing sense of dread in the pit of his stomach. Something was very wrong here. The team regrouped in the ship's control room, trying to make sense of what they had found. They had a lot of questions, but no answers. Who were the crew of this ship? What had they been doing out here in deep space? And most importantly, what had killed them? Alexei rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. He had a crew to protect, a mission to complete, and now a mystery to solve. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but he was determined to see it through. "All right, let's start gathering as much information as we can," he said, addressing his team. "We need to find out what happened here and report back to our employer. We don't want anyone else to fall victim to whatever killed these people." The team got to work, scouring the ship for any clues they could find. Alexei watched them, feeling a sense of pride in their dedication and determination. They were his crew, his responsibility, and he would do everything in his power to keep them safe. As the hours ticked by, they slowly pieced together a picture of what had happened on the derelict ship. But the more they learned, the more questions they had, and the more uneasy Alexei felt. This was just the beginning of a nightmare that was about to unfold. As the team continued to comb through the derelict ship, they discovered more and more evidence that something sinister had occurred. There were signs of struggle and violence in some areas, while others seemed untouched. It was as if the crew had been taken by surprise, unable to mount a defense. Alexei gathered the team together in the ship's mess hall, hoping to get a better understanding of what they had found. "All right, what do we know so far?" he asked, looking around at his crew. "The crew all died of asphyxiation," said Dr. Liang, the team's medical officer. but there's no evidence of a breach in the ship's hull or oxygen system. It's like they just stopped breathing. There are signs of a struggle in some areas, said Sergeant Singh, the team's weapons specialist. It looks like they were fighting for their lives. And there's no sign of any kind of weapon or attacker, added Lieutenant Chen, the team's communications officer. Alexei listened carefully to their findings, his mind racing as he tried to piece together what had happened. Okay, so what's our next move? He asked. We need to find out more about the crew, said Dr. Liang. Who they were, what they were doing out here, and if there were any clues as to what might have caused their deaths. Agreed, said Alexei. Let's split up and search the ship. We need to leave no stone unturned. As the team split up and began searching the ship, Alexei couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. There was something just out of reach, a clue that would help them understand what had happened on the derelict ship. He was deep in thought when he heard a shout from one of his team members. He raced to the source of the noise, his heart pounding with anticipation. What did you find? He asked, his eyes scanning the area for any clues. It's a log, said Lieutenant Chen, holding up a datapad. From the ship's captain. It looks like he was recording his thoughts and observations leading up to the crew's deaths. Alexei felt a sense of relief wash over him. This was the breakthrough they had been looking for. He motioned for the team to gather around, eager to hear what the captain had to say. They huddled around the datapad as Lieutenant Chen played the recording. The captain's voice was solemn, his words measured. I don't know what's happening, he said. The crew is getting sick, one by one. They're exhibiting strange symptoms, and I don't know how to treat them. We've been out here for too long, isolated from the rest of humanity. I fear that we may have been exposed to something out here in the depths of space. Alexei listened carefully, his mind racing as he tried to piece together the puzzle. The captain's words gave them a clue, but it was still too vague. They needed more information. Okay, let's keep searching, he said, addressing his team. We need to find out what the captain was referring to and how it led to the crew's deaths. As the team continued to search the ship, they uncovered more and more evidence that something had gone horribly wrong. Alexei felt a growing sense of unease as he realized that they were up against something far more insidious than a simple accident or malfunction. He knew that they were in for a long and difficult investigation, but he was determined to get to the bottom of what had happened on the derelict ship, and he knew that his crew was counting on him to keep them safe. As the team continued their investigation, they discovered something unsettling. It was a lab, hidden deep within the bowels of the derelict ship, and it was unlike anything they had ever seen. The lab was filled with strange equipment, the likes of which Alexei had never seen before. There were rows of glass containers filled with a strange liquid, and a large, complicated-looking machine in the center of the room. What is this place? Asked Dr. Liang, her voice filled with trepidation. I don't know, said Alexei, his eyes scanning the room for any clues. But it looks like they were doing some kind of research in here. As the team began to examine the lab, they found notes and data pads scattered throughout the room. It was clear that whatever was going on in here was highly secretive and not meant to be discovered. Alexei picked up one of the data pads, eager to learn more about what they had found. But as he began to read, a sense of dread began to fill him. The research that had been conducted in this lab was like nothing he had ever seen before. They had been experimenting on human subjects, genetically modifying them in ways that were both shocking and terrifying. Alexei could feel the anger and disgust rising within him. How could anyone do this to another human being? The more he read, the more he realized that this was more than just a simple research project. This was something far more sinister. We need to get out of here, said Alexei, his voice shaking with anger. This place is a ticking time bomb. As the team began to leave the lab, Alexei noticed something strange. One of the glass containers was shattered, and the liquid inside was spilled all over the floor. He could see something moving within the container, something that looked almost human. Get out now, he shouted, motioning for his team to leave the lab. "This place is not safe." As they raced out of the lab, Alexei felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had found something important, something that could help them understand what had happened to the crew of the derelict ship. But he also knew that what they had discovered was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The thought of what was happening in that lab made his blood run cold. "We need to get back to our ship," said Alexei, his voice calm but urgent. "We need to report what we found, and we need to get out of here as soon as possible." As they raced back to their own ship, Alexei's mind was racing. They had stumbled upon something that was far beyond their wildest imaginings, and he knew that they were in over their heads. But he also knew that they had a duty to report what they had found. They couldn't just leave it all behind and pretend that nothing had happened. And so, with a heavy heart and a growing sense of unease, Alexei and his team set out to report their unsettling discovery and to find a way to stop the madness before it was too late. As the team returned to their ship, they were met with a surprising sight. A group of armed men and women were waiting for them, their weapons trained on Alexei and his team. "What's going on here?" demanded Alexei, his voice firm and commanding. "You know exactly what's going on," said a tall, imposing figure who seemed to be the leader of the group. "You've been poking your noses where they don't belong." Alexei's mind raced as he tried to figure out what was happening. Who were these people, and what did they want? "We found something in that ship," said Alexei, trying to reason with the group. "Something that could change everything." The leader of the group laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You think we don't know that?" she said. "We've been tracking that ship for years. We know exactly what's on board." Alexei felt a cold sense of dread wash over him. These people weren't just some random group of space pirates or scavengers. They were something far more dangerous. "We need to get out of here," said Dr. Lang, her voice filled with fear. But before they could move, the group moved in, surrounding them and disarming them. "You're not going anywhere," said the leader of the group. "Not until we have what we came for." Alexei felt his heart sink as he realized what was happening. They had been set up, led into a trap by someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. "Who are you people?" demanded Alexei, his voice trembling with anger and fear. The leader of the group smiled, a cruel, cold smile. "We're the ones who are going to change everything," she said. "And you're just in our way." With a sudden, swift motion, she reached for Alexei's throat, her fingers closing around his neck in a vice-like grip. Alexei struggled to break free, but it was no use. The leader of the group was too strong, too powerful. As he felt the darkness closing in around him, Alexei knew that they had been betrayed. And he knew that there was nothing they could do to stop it. The last thing he saw before everything went black was the leader of the group, her face twisted in a cruel, triumphant smile. As Alexei drifted into unconsciousness, he knew that they had only scratched the surface of the conspiracy that surrounded them. And he knew that the only way to stop it was to find a way to fight back, no matter the cost. Alexei woke up to a throbbing pain in his head. He groaned as he tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea washed over him, and he collapsed back onto the cold, hard floor. As his vision cleared, he saw that he was in a small, cramped cell. The walls were made of metal, and there was a single flickering light overhead. He tried to remember how he got here, but the memories were fuzzy and indistinct, like a dream he couldn't quite grasp. As he struggled to his feet, the door to the cell suddenly opened, and two of the armed men who had captured them stepped inside. "Get up," said one of them, his voice rough and gruff. Alexei stumbled to his feet, his head still throbbing. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "We're taking you to see our boss," said the other man. "She wants to talk to you." Alexei felt a sense of dread wash over him. He had a feeling that this boss was the leader of the group that had captured them, and he knew that they were in for a rough time. As he was led through the winding corridors of the ship, Alexei took in his surroundings. The ship was unlike any he had ever seen before. It was old and rusted, and it seemed to creak and groan with every step they took. The group eventually arrived in a large, dimly lit room. The walls were lined with screens and equipment, and there was a large desk at the center of the room. Sitting behind the desk was a woman, tall and imposing. Her hair was jet black, and her eyes were a piercing shade of blue. "So, you're the ones who have been causing all this trouble," she said, her voice cool and commanding. "We're just here to do our job," said Alexei, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "And your job is to steal what belongs to us?" she asked. "We didn't know," said Alexei, desperation creeping into his voice. "We were just following orders." The woman's expression softened slightly. "I believe you," she said, "but you have to understand, we can't just let you go. You know too much." Alexei felt a sense of hopelessness wash over him. He knew that they were trapped, and that there was no way out. But then, something unexpected happened. The woman leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Alexei's. "But maybe," she said, "there is a way we can come to an agreement." Alexei felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a way out of this after all. "What kind of agreement?" he asked, his voice trembling with anticipation. The woman smiled, a sly, cunning smile. "You work for us," she said. "You do what we say, and we let you go." Alexei's heart sank. He knew that he didn't have a choice. If he wanted to get out of this alive, he had to agree to their terms. And so, reluctantly, he nodded his head. He had just made a deal with the devil, but it was the only way out. Alexei couldn't believe what he was seeing. The screens in front of him displayed footage of the ship's previous crew, all of whom had been genetically modified to withstand the harsh conditions of deep space. But there was something else, something that sent a shiver down Alexei's spine. The footage showed the crew slowly losing their sanity, their bodies contorting and mutating into grotesque forms. "They were all experiments," said the woman who had struck a deal with Alexei. "The government wanted to create the perfect space soldiers, and they used these poor souls as their guinea pigs." Alexei felt a surge of anger and disgust. He couldn't believe that the government would do something so cruel and inhumane. "But why did you want the cargo so badly?" asked Alexei, trying to make sense of everything. The woman hesitated for a moment before answering. "The cargo contains a serum," she said. "A serum that can reverse the effects of the genetic modification." Alexei's mind was spinning. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You mean," he said, his voice trembling with disbelief, "you could have saved them?" The woman nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "But the government didn't want anyone to know about their little experiment. They wanted to cover it up, so they left the crew to die." Alexei felt a sense of despair wash over him. He couldn't believe that so many lives had been lost because of the government's greed and corruption. But then he had an idea. "What if we use the serum on ourselves?" he asked, his mind racing with possibilities. The woman looked at him skeptically. "And how do you propose we do that?" she asked. Alexei smiled, a small glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We can use the equipment on this ship," he said. "We can modify ourselves, just like they did. But this time, we'll be in control." The woman considered his proposal for a moment before nodding slowly. "All right," she said. "But we have to be careful. If the government finds out what we're doing, they'll come after us." And so, Alexei and the woman worked together, using the serum to modify themselves and become stronger, faster, and more resilient than ever before. As they worked, Alexei couldn't help but think about the crew of the derelict ship. He couldn't bring them back, but he could honor their memory by using their sacrifice to make a better future. And as he looked out at the vast expanse of space, Alexei felt a sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but he knew that he had the strength and determination to face whatever came his way.